Another word, and I'm just giving you a couple more for example. Another word that you may use and somebody else may use, and you think you're having a conversation with the same premise, and you're not, is the word worship. I may be talking about worship, and I'm talking about one thing, and someone else is talking about entirely another. It's true, isn't it? To me, worship, there's a lot to it. I like reading Tozer on worship. I think he gets all of the aspects of worship and kind of does a good job explaining the difference between simply having an emotion, simply having a feeling, and worshiping God. But one of the words that Tozer incorporates in his definitions for worship is admiration. But he puts it this way. He says you can admire something and not worship it. But he said you cannot worship something and not admire it. Another word that he uses often is reverence. Reverence. He says you can't worship that which you do not revere. There is a sense of exalted loftiness to the object of worship. So sometimes when I'm talking about worship, I'm talking to somebody that says, Jesus, you rock. That doesn't seem reverent to me. It's kind of like, high five, Jesus. That's a little shocking to hear Pastor Price say something like that, isn't it? Why? Because it seems irreverent, doesn't it? But that's what that person means by worship. And what I mean by worship is I understand, I'm so consumed by the concept of God's holiness that when I come into His presence, I fall. Instead of me being lifted up and being open and being unashamed, I bow. So when somebody calls me and they say, we'd like to talk to your worship leader, and I say, you got it, I'm the worship leader in our church. I lead the worship. Oh, you do? Well, what instrument do you play? So, well, I usually just sing, but I can pound on the piano a little bit. Oh, really? Well, what about your worship team? I said, well, the whole congregation's the worship team. We all worship together. We team up we have corporate worship. In other words, all of us. And then pretty soon they realize I'm just talking about the service. I'm not talking about the performance. And so we're not talking about the same thing. Justification, grace, mercy. These are words that when you study them, if you do not define them in the basis of a scriptural context, they will be defined in the basis of a cultural trend. They'll be defined in the basis of whatever author has spun his definition in whatever latest book it is that he's written or that is being read and that's being sold by Zondervan or Baker. And I'm not just upset or frustrated by this. I'm just telling you as a church, if you don't know what a word means in the Bible, you don't know what a doctrine is. It's important to know Bible doctrine. One of the things that is common to have happen today by people who frustrate the grace of God is to redefine words in a different context than they are in the Scripture. And one of the things that happens oftentimes is that we find, and as we're going to see this evening, we find the law and grace placed in a situation of opposition, juxtaposed, where literally they are made so that they are different, that they are not connected in any way. And Galatians dispels that. So let's read our text, make a few comments this evening. And if ever I could recommend Scripture memory, I would recommend some of the verses that we're going to read this evening. You'll see those in a few minutes because we're going to park there.